Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Batman 143. This is a new book from DC Comics, but let's talk about the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Andrea Sorrentino and Giuseppe Camuncoli, inks by Stefano Nessi, colors by Dave Stewart and Alejandro Sanchez, letters by Clayton Cowles. This is The Joker Year 1 Part 2. The terrifying tale of the Joker Year 1 continues as a mysterious figure from Batman's past has come into the Joker's orbit, changing the clown Prince of Crime forever. And what secrets does the reformed Red Hood gang have for Batman's future? This is a very exciting three-part story. We are seeing multiple timelines, hence we have multiple artists. So I love that they are using that for effect. Camuncoli returns to tell us a story from Batman's past, as we saw in Batman the Night. And we also now have Andrea Sorrentino giving us a glimpse at a possible future where things are pretty messed up. And I think when you're going to do something like that, Sorrentino is definitely the right artist for that. So in the future, we see that this Joker virus thing kind of continues to spread. I think it's a really interesting concept. Batman's past, in the meanwhile, comes back to haunt him in the past storyline, which is the one that Camuncoli is doing the art for. We'll see some of that in the previews in a minute. Also, why is the Red Hood gang after the Joker or after Jack? And of course, we also have a lot of really cool stuff. I think one of the strongest things in this issue is Sorrentino's paneling. The pacing really makes it feel like this noir detective story. A lot of details, a lot of zooming in on really important stuff. Like the clues are all there on the page for the reader to find, which is really cool. Um, there's distrust in the GCPD, which we also get a confrontation of that in the past storyline. So it's really interesting. It's a good balance of both of the stories going back and forth. And, somebody from Batman's past coming back to give Joker a heads up or a leg up, or really mold him into maybe the criminal that we know from the future. It's very cool. And of course, there's a really interesting surprise for Batman at the end of the issue. So let's take a look at some of the preview art. As I mentioned, I love the contrast between these artists. I think it's really cool. It really plays well for the effect that they're trying to achieve of this younger Batman versus this, story of Batman in the future. And like I said, there's a lot of really cool surprises that Sorrentino gets to draw towards the end of the issue. And here we see, like I said, this figure from Batman's past. If you read Batman the Night, you'll know a little bit more about that. Highly recommend you go check that out. But I also love seeing this younger Batman. Like his physicality is a lot different than we're seeing. Of course, his outfit reminiscent of Greg Capullo's design in Zero Year. So everything just plays really well. And we are one issue away from the end of the story. Like I said, this is a small story, so it'll be interesting to figure out how this end up after the end of this issue, how this plays out. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Action Comics 1062. This is part 2 of the Bizarro story as the Superman Superstars line continues over at Action Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. We have Superstar writer Jason Aaron with artist John Timms with colors by Rex Locus, letters by Dave Sharp, and a plethora of variant covers. We'll see some at the end of the video. This story really caught me by surprise on the first issue. I didn't know where Jason Aaron was going to go, and it's been going in a really interesting direction. Bringing in Bizarro, bringing in magic, everything that Superman will definitely struggle against. So, in this issue, Trapped in the City of Bizarro, the shocking second chapter of the worst Bizarro story ever. Jason Aaron's first time writing, Superman sees the Men of Steel trapped in a world gone mad, a metropolis transformed in the city of Bizarro. While Superman struggles to save the lives of people who despise him, he's also battling the most powerful Bizarro of all, the one inside of his mind. After the end of the first issue, which we have a review for that for 1061 in the channel, go check that out. Bizarro disappears, but he infects the whole city. He does something. He unleashes this magic that he had acquired to infect the whole city and turn them into Bizarros themselves. I think one of the most interesting parts of the story is how Jason Aaron chooses to write like what is a bizarro world look like? Like these people doing the opposite, right? Uh, like somebody who's responsible would do responsible things. Somebody that's happy is doing things that are sad. Somebody that usually is very careful is being a lot more reckless. Like just all those little things, having causing Superman to not only lose everything, all his support system, in the city, but how long will that spread? How much will Bizarro take from him? Can he even stop himself from becoming this Bizarro? So let's take a look at some of the preview art. John Tim's fantastic artist. He very reminiscent of some other Superman artists, but I think he definitely adds his own flair, his own style. And I just love the pacing of this issue, specifically to begin with. Just seeing everything that's going on, all the Bizarro turning like the firefighters, you know, causing fires, the school kids being reckless, the doctor being like they switch places, right? So the patient is performing surgery on the doctor, and then of course we get to see Superman also turning into a Bizarro of his own. So I love this page. I think it's so cool. Like the detail of the plane in the background, the lightning, just everything that's going on. The fact that he's laughing means that he's actually sad, right? Because things are reversed. Yeah, it's all those little things, all those little details that really make this story a lot of fun. And it's crazy. It's definitely some really bombastic superhero shenanigans, but if it's done in the right way, I think it can be very captivating. And of course, with Bizarro and Magic, you never know how that's going to end up. So, really enjoyed this issue. I can't wait to see what happens next with the story, and also what else they're gonna do with the Action Comics line. I think having superstars kind of come in and do some really fun Superman stories or Superman related stories, I think that'll be really neat. So, hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Blue Beetle #6. This is a new book from DC Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Josh Trujillo with art by Adrian Gutierrez, Will Quintana on colors, letters by Lucas Gattoni. This is chapter 6 of the Scarab War. This is pretty much the end of the Scarab War. First of all, I just want to say, even though the arc is complete, we will have more Blue Beetle by this team in the future, so this will continue. Now, in this issue, Blue Beetle's final showdown with the Blood Scarab begins. Only one Scarab wielder will be left standing. Uh, this issue just hits a lot of boxes. First of all, it completes the storyline. It gives us a lot more information on the true origin of the Blood Scarab. We get to see some really cool fights. So not only do we get an all-out battle, also Jaime has a really nice glow up. Once you get to that part of the book, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's like this sick double page spread. I don't have that as preview art, but man, it is so cool. Like just that would be such a nice massive poster. And I think learning all about the origin and the motivations of the Blood Scarab, but also how far Jaime is willing to go, and how far Kajida, who's the Beetle, who are willing to also go to protect Jaime, and also defeat the enemy. Yeah, it's really interesting. It almost feels like these characters are two sides of the same coin. And of course, with the beautiful, beautiful art that Adrian Gutierrez has been doing, some really cool sound effects and letters by Lucas Gattoni, Lucas Gattoni on letters. So yeah, this book just really, really came together very neatly. Let's take a look at some of the preview art. And as I mentioned, the opening of this book, as you can see from the narration, we get to learn the name of the blood scarab, the beetle itself. We get to figure out why, uh, how he became to be and what the main purpose of this beetle is. Like, why are they out for blood? Why do they want to get rid of Jaime? Uh, you know, and then also one thing that I really appreciate is the ability to demonstrate like just having all these characters show up, it's very cool. Like switching back, back and forth, showing us very efficiently within these 2 pages. Not only who's all there at this big battle, but like having the battle kind of begin. I love this page or this panel with the hands, colliding, uh, and then just the aftermath of that. How the lack of color really demonstrates how dramatic things are getting. So it's a fun book. This is a really fun arc. If you've been waiting to, for whatever reason, to read Blue Beetle until the first arc is complete, this is your chance. And of course, there's some really cool covers for this. So I'm very excited about the future of this book, very excited about the future of these characters. And I think that we'll be seeing some really interesting stuff, specifically because of the way that this book ends. So hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Red Hood, The Hill #1. Last week, we got issue number 0 for this, that really put together some of the previously printed stories that lead up to everything that's going on here. This book is written by Sean Martinborough with art by Sanford Green. Um, in this book, can Jason Todd and his new allies keep his home safe? Welcome to the Hill, formerly one of Gotham's most dangerous suburbs, a place that required its residents to band together to keep themselves safe when the police and sometimes even Batman would not. Now that the Hill finds itself gentrifying, old habits die hard as the vigilante known as Strike works with her team to keep the town safe, but she's not alone. Jason Todd, one of the Hill's newest residents, is more than happy to don the visage of the Red Hood to help Strike keep his home safe as a new villain emerges from the shadows. Will the Red Hood strike and the Hills, a small militia of vigilantes, be able to keep their home safe? Check out the return to Red Hood on this. So yeah, Red Hood's got a brand new squad, which is pretty interesting. Specifically after everything that Jason's been through, um, it's it's interesting to align how this kind of plays along with the larger universe. But even then, just this book itself, this is your street level type of book that I love to see over at DC. Things can get very cool when it's when everything doesn't have those big universe ending stakes, right? This is just about the people. It's about the neighborhood, and I think Jason Todd is a really interesting character to put in that position, especially after everything that's been going on. So I will say Sanford Green does a fantastic work with the art. All the characters that we're shown throughout the preview feel very much like their own people, their own, like they really feel like people from a neighborhood. Uh, and it's just really fun, the approach to make sure that characters feel real, feel lived in, like the comic book itself feels street level, feels not so much gritty, but like just very real. Like there's a lot of realness to what's going on here. So then you can really fold in the superhero shenanigans that happen. But even then, there's no like superpowers. The villains don't feel like caricatures. Like everything feels very serious and being taken at face value, which I appreciate in a comic. Let's take a look at some of the preview art here. As I mentioned, one thing I love really is uh, the coloring. Like having all these characters not only look very unique, but very much real. Like the skin tones are pretty hard to nail down in a comic book specifically without the right amount of time. But I think the team really nails it here. Like the use of shadows, the way that their clothes feel like real people. I love that because it makes it a little bit more of a story that you could really dive into. The dialogue feels also very genuine, but also I love how things kind of begin to escalate. All the villains, of course, everyone in Gotham that's up to no good is going to have a very interesting look to them, to say the least. So yeah, this is a fun story. I think this is something that I will wait for the trade. I'm not really sure. I want to check out issue #2 before I make that decision, because there's definitely a lot of new stuff in here. So it's a good book to get into because everyone's going to be learning at the same time. But I don't know that this is the best book for somebody that's like a first time comic book reader. There's, like I said, there's a lot happening, a lot's being established, and although it's well done, I think it does have a little bit more of a high bar when it comes to this being somebody's first comic book. Hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Green Lantern #8. This is a new book from DC Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Jeremy Adams with art by Amanke Nawalpan, colors by Romeo Fajardo Jr., letters by Dave Sharp. Uh, this this really fun story continues on the Green Lantern book. In this issue, we have Hal Jordan versus the United Planets. After the revelations of what happened in Korugar in the last issue, Hal discovers the new United Planets are consolidating power in the universe by nefarious means. But before he can stop them, representatives of the United Planet Corps have arrived to arrest Hal for unlawful use of the emotional spectrum in a quarantine zone. So we know that Hal's stuck on Earth. We don't know exactly what's going on. We don't know exactly why. We don't know what the full motive behind these United Planets are, or why Hal is even able to connect to this power ring. But I think things are definitely going to escalate from this one. We also get to see a Blue Lantern, Odom, who's introduced in this issue. We met them in the past. Really cool to see a Blue Lantern here because, as you know, uh, they work with the Green Lanterns and they kind of make each other stronger because of course, will and hope. Willpower and hope kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, Jeremy Adams just he manages to do both things that can be very heartfelt, also things that can be turned into like these amazing, super cool action sequences. But then the concept overall, like the core of this story, still remains a Green Lantern story. So really, really fun stuff. Let's take a look at some of the preview art here. As you can see, we start back in a different planet where the Blue Lanterns used to be before everything that went down. We get to see how Odom kind of lost his home and had to kind of go on the run in order to look for Hal. And then, of course, Hal's still pretty much reeling from, kind of himself realizing or at least accepting what happened to what happened in Korugar and everything that happened to him. So, um, yeah, this is just really cool. I think Aman K. Nawalpan does a really good job with these big pages that you really need just a one big static image that kind of gives you a kickstart to the story. And I think that's really fun. So yeah, I haven't been enjoying a Green Lantern book, specifically one about Hal. He's not my favorite Lantern, but I enjoy the books. So it's been a while since I've been so hooked into one of these comics, and I think Jeremy Adams and the team really have nailed that aspect of it for me. So really excited to see what happens next. Hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Sinister Sons #1. This is a new book from DC Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. In this book, we have story and words by Peter Tomasi with art by David LaFuente, Tamara Von Villen and colors, letters by Rob Lee. Uh, what is this book exactly, you may ask? Well, it is a return to form for Peter Tomasi. I love when he writes characters like this. It feels like the other side of the coin of like the Super Sons book with John and Damien when John was younger. If you haven't checked those out, I definitely recommend it. So in this one, meet DC's new devious new duo from Super Sons writer Peter J. Tomasi and fan favorite artist David LaFuente. They are bad to the bone, ready to brawl, and the sons of the two of the deadliest villains in the galaxy. They're the Sinister Sons, and the DC universe will never be the same. When the son of General Zod is cast off his adopted home world of New Kandor, Lord Zod runs afoul of a kid on a mission. Sin Son is out to prove that he's got what it takes to live up to the family name Sinestro. But all is not as it seems, as these sons' journey will take them into the heart of darkness in this sensational first issue. Uh, this is one dynamic debut for these two in DC history. So, very interesting premise. I think it's always fun to have, like, Tomasi's really good at writing these types of characters where they're younger, they're rebellious. It's not the same dynamic that John and Damien had, but there's some similar aspects to it, right? They don't initially or obviously just immediately get along, but they all have their own ambitions, they all have their own plans, they both have something to kind of fight for, so that's really interesting to see. And they all have something to prove to either themselves or maybe their parents. So that's really fun. So that unusual pairing really makes things great. So let's take a look at some of the preview art. I think David Lafuente does a really interesting job at making this more cartoony than some of the other DC books at the time, but it's not like it's not being serious, right? This is still presented with an air of like seriousness to it within the approach, but there's still a lot of really fun details, as you can see here in these next few pages. The coloring is really cool. Just all the little gadgets, the little noises, like everything kind of really works together to set the tone of the story. It feels silly. It feels a little more innocent than any regular book, but we know that it's going to be full of shenanigans. Like I said, the interactions between these two kids are a lot of fun to follow. So I highly recommend this. Also, make sure you go check out Kneel Before Zod #1, so you can check out the story of lore, and then also make sure to read in the backup of the Green Lantern book, so you can check out the story of Sin Sun and how he got here. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Batman City of Madness #3. This is a new book from DC Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written and drawn by Christian Ward with letters by Hassan Otsmane Elhau. This is issue 3, the finale of this DC Black Label series. In this issue, the terrible origin of the Gotham Below is revealed in the final issue of the cosmic horror epic. The terrible origin of Gotham Below and those responsible for protecting its maddening secrets is revealed. Batman and Talon have fought their way through the underground of the city's nightmarish villains to rescue Giovanni, but has the Batman Below already twisted his mind beyond the point of saving? Um, this was a very interesting story to get overall to get into. I think there's a lot of things that I really appreciate here. I love the premise of this Gotham Below. I really like obviously the art is fantastic. We'll get into that in a minute. And I just like seeing all these twisted versions of all the characters in the mythology. You can definitely tell Christian Ward is a big fan of the Batman mythos, because going into this and going deep into this and creating a brand new world really takes a lot of dedication for that. I really enjoy that part, and I think overall the story is a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. There's a few things, especially in this last issue, I felt like the pacing maybe got a little rushed as we were trying to wrap everything up. But overall, very enjoyable, quite enjoyable story. I think Christian Ward has a very distinct style of storytelling, and that may be just due to him doing both the story and the art. I think that'd be something really fun to hear about. So let's take a look at some of the preview art so you can see some of the stuff that I'm talking about. And of course, I think the first thing that obviously always jumps out at me when I look at some art from Ward is the bright color palette. Like, it's always very distinct, even in the colder moments, even in the darker tone moments. I think you can tell that it's just a very specific look and feel. I think there's a lot of very interesting character designs, or even designs of ideas that can get a little abstract, I think. But it's very cool to just kind of go and live through this world. And as you can see here, we're seeing some shades of the beginning and I just really love that the panels are kind of like they're not really rectangles, or they don't have these like harsh angles, right? They're kind of wavy. They're kind of like we don't know exactly what's going on as this creature swallows up this person, and all that stuff. And then flipping back to the more current Gotham, more contemporary Gotham, how the style, although it changes in the approach of the paneling, you can tell that it's all kind of leading towards the same tone and the same story. So, yeah, I was very happy with the conclusion of this. I think this is something that's going to be very interesting to read all at once the collection is out together, and I'm sure that DC is going to put out a banger of a collection for this. Their DC Black Label books just really nail. They have really good designers over at DC, and of course they have great artists working on covers and stuff like that. So like, I think it's gonna look great. I'm gonna highly recommend this. Although this is not to me a seminal Batman story, I think it's a really fun exploration and a play on a lot of things in the Batman mythos. So definitely fun for your Batman second level, like when you're trying to dig deeper into Batman stories. I think this is something that might be fun to check out. And of course, it's always really cool to see the Court of Owls, the Talons, even just this new version or different version of Two Face, or it's kind of twisted, and it's just a very, very cool approach. So, if you have read this, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.